Welcome to the Live Greater podcast. Today we have Sarah Norton on the podcast. Welcome, Sarah.
Thank you.
This is
So good to
so
be
good.
here.
Sarah and I have known each other for what seems like forever, since we were kids.
Yes. Little kids. Our
Yeah.
dads were like best friends.
Yeah. So
Mm,
fun.
My dad still talks about your dad a lot.
Oh, good.
Yeah.
I miss my dad.
Yeah, I do too.
Oh, you're gonna make me cry now.
Wayne was the
Yeah.
best. He was so much fun.
Yeah. So Sarah I am so excited to talk to Sarah today because she has some amazing things to share. She has gone through quite a bit in her life, and she has so much to add to help people overcome and get through traumas or just any life experiences. But before we get into that, Sarah, do you want to just tell people a little bit about you?
Okay. I'm Sarah Norton. I've been married to my new husband, my real husband, for 3 years, and he's amazing. Our personalities are so in sync, and it's really fun to live our dreams together and raise our kids and grandkids together. My kids are mostly raised. My kids are all in their 20s, and his kids are in their teens, and he has one daughter that's 21. So we have known each other for over 20 years. We were really good friends for a long time, and that was really fun. So our connection is really strong and deep and very healing. I teach classes that help people and do retreats that help people awaken and align their body, mind, and spirit and recover from just life stress all the way up to really yucky trauma. I use art and spirituality and science, and I mix it all together and help them really connect with their body and soul. I'm an artist. I love drawing and painting. I love to sing. I love to dance. That's my favorite exercise that I've been doing lately is dancing in my backyard. And I just have a good time with myself. I've really taken a lot of new journeys recently, really giving myself exquisite care of my body and soul, taking everything that I've been teaching and applying it to myself on a new level. And I've reached new heights, which has been really exciting for me recently. Lots of healing. So
Wow.
it's been
That
good.
yeah, that's awesome. So what started this for you? Like, well,
Question.
for you kept mentioning science, like when we were talking about. So, what did you study that in school, or what is your background that way?
Yeah, I did. I went to BYU and I studied family studies, which involves a lot of psychology and family systems, things like that. I
Okay.
loved it so much. And I really got to just apply it in my family. I finished my degree online through BYU's independent study. So it took me like 2.5 years on campus and then about 7.5 years when I was raising my kids doing it online. But I loved everything I learned and I got to apply it as I was learning it to my, raising my children and to myself. Probably the biggest life lessons I've learned has just been in the school of hard knocks. I had an
Mm-hmm.
eating disorder when I was a teenager for a few years, and then it came back for about 5 years when I was in my late 20s, early 30s, after I had my youngest baby, my last child. And recovering from that was really difficult, but an incredibly spiritual journey. So that's kind of the sciencey stuff I learned in school. And then the spiritual stuff, I finally started really applying the spiritual things that I had learned as a child at church and with my family. And when I did the two is when I had some major breakthroughs. And ever since then, I have just loved studying the mind and the body connection. And I've read a million books. I just have stacks and stacks of books. We have a huge library. And I just am obsessed with self-help books, psychology, sociology, how the body itself works, spirituality, energy, all that stuff. I literally cannot get enough of it. So I've been applying it to myself and practicing and just trying to get healthier and healthier as I go in my own life, just to see how things apply to me. And then you're probably going to ask me about this, but just while we're talking about where I got started, after I healed from my eating disorder, the next part of my journey was that I lost my little sister to suicide in 2012. And that was actually 2011. That was just beyond devastating. She was only 21 years old. She was the baby of our family. We had 9 kids, and she was our baby sister. That was devastating. And I realized that we have to be really proactive with our mental, physical, spiritual health, or terrible things can happen. Like with her, she had a lot of unhealed trauma that we didn't know about. And she also had an eating disorder like I had had. And she never got healthy. And it was just such a tragic loss. So at her funeral, I promised her and I made a commitment that I would dedicate my life to helping people understand their beautiful souls and who they really are. And I have done that. And I just love honoring her that way. And that's just kind of when me taking these things from healing myself took it to the next level of healing other people. I started a 12-week challenge where we did things that helped us physically, spiritually, and emotionally. For 12 weeks, we would try out different things and see which ones helped us most and what we could learn. And just started helping other people do it. And that has been really fun. So she was a major motivating factor for that. And I do it in her honor, and I do it to help other people not become, as lost as she was. And she's a big part of my life still. Her name's Liza. I love her.
Wow, that is so special. I didn't realize that's that promise that you made with her. Wow,
Yeah.
that's amazing.
Yeah. I've been keeping it. It's been really fun to just keep her in my life that way
Yeah,
through everything that I do to help other people, little lost girls like her.
yeah. So, for you and your experience with having the disorder, the eating disorder, how did you discover or accept that you had it? Like, did someone kind of keep pointing it out to you? I mean, how
Yeah.
did you come?
I mostly just, with anything, when you just kind of hit rock bottom, you just get really sick of it. I had a friend of mine named Trudy Barrett. She passed away a couple years after she helped me get better. She was really amazing. She was the first one who just said, "Have you ever just prayed to get better?" Because I'd seen a couple counselors. I told my ex-husband, I was married for 26 years and got divorced in 2019, and I had told him about it maybe 2 or 3 years into my struggle, and he was a doctor and he tried to help me, and he would just get really frustrated because I just wasn't doing what he said, because he just didn't really understand the psychology behind why people have eating disorders.
Mm,
And so I think talking to her about it, I remember when I would have other friends come over to my house, in our church we did what we called visiting teaching, and I remember wishing that one of them would ask me how I was doing and like wait long enough for my answer for me to get brave to tell them that I was really struggling and that I was suffering. And I wish that they would be like, "No, really, how are you doing? No, really, 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 like tell me how you're," because I wanted
right.
to tell someone so bad. But I eventually told Trudy, and she was actually my visiting teaching companion. So for about 5 years, the two of us had been little partners, and we would go visit other ladies in our area and teach them and mentor them and just help them. And so I finally told her, and she was the one who said, she actually said to me, asked me about praying. And then the big step for me, the hugest step, and I teach this in my classes, was that she said, the thing that helped me the most in my life overcome my biggest trials, and she was actually telling it to a girl we were visiting. She said to her, it was when I started studying the scriptures every day for a half hour. And it changed my life and it helped me heal from the abuse. She was talking about abuse that she suffered as a child, which I knew about. But to the girl, she just said a hard time, that I
Hmm.
had. But I knew she was talking about serious trauma. And she said the one thing that shifted her into like a healing place was reading her scriptures every day. And it was like this megaphone. God was like, "She's talking to you. You've been praying to get healed. This is the next step. This is what you need to do." And it was amazing. I started reading the Book of Mormon every day for a half an hour. And I my whole life I'd been raised in the LDS church, the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and I'd read the Book of Mormon and I liked church, but I had never taken a deep dive into like my own spirituality, into connecting with God through scripture. And I started praying before I would read, and then I would read, and reading for a half hour at a time for a time period and not just a chapter, but like you just jump in and you read the stories and you get to see the big picture. And I almost immediately I felt this change in my life where God was just like right there. And I realized that he'd been right there all along. I just hadn't really reached up and tried to, touch the light, reach into the light. And I felt like there was this new connection between me and God that hadn't existed before, but it was because I hadn't been reaching up. And all I had to do was just pick up my scriptures and start being intentional with my prayers and spirituality. And then I just became like addicted to it. If I can feel this amazing in like 1 week, why wouldn't I keep doing this? And then I started having experiences where he was able to teach me directly how how valued I was, who I was to him. And I started realizing I am not my body. I am not, I don't, it
Mhm.
doesn't matter if I'm skinny and perfect. I was obsessed with how I looked. My marriage was really terrible and really, really stressful. So part of my brain was thinking, oh, if I could just be perfect all the time, the perfect wife and perfectly skinny and perfectly adorable and perfectly kind and all these things that I could stop the fighting and the yelling. And it wasn't working. What I needed to understand was that it wasn't about the outside and that God loved who I was on the inside. And that didn't change. It didn't change. It was permanent. And so that's one of the things that I love to help teach people is our bodies are precious and priceless. And that was like the second half of my healing from my eating disorder. But the first half was God being able just to reach straight into me and just be in contact with me and let me know that he loves me, he sees me, he's real, I'm real, and
Yeah.
the part of me that's real and connecting to him is my soul and not my body. And the body, it's awesome and it's going to do its thing and help us live wonderful lives, but it's not who I am. And that was important.
And I love how the answer for you was, or the help that you received was just the scriptures and the prayer. Like
Yeah. The first
those
step.
aren't really hard things to do. It's the
I know.
consistency that's hard, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And people tell you that. I was like, why has no one ever told me to read this book? It's amazing. But of course, I've been told a million times.
All right.
You just don't listen. It's at the certain time in your life, the thing
Yeah.
that is the next key, or the next piece of the puzzle for your healing journey, it's going to click into place. And for some people, it's like you need to get outside. And some people, they need to connect with other people. I need to have more friends. You need to reach out more. For some people, it's going to be you need to eat better because you're just trashing your body from the inside. So there's different pieces for the puzzle. For me, that was a huge piece of the puzzle that I wasn't doing. And it was amazing. It was so fun to just be like, wow. I just started realizing that God could like guide me and lead me through these cool paths, and I had these really neat experiences that I wasn't having before. And it was just like one little thing that I changed to all of a sudden I felt enlightened, I felt inspired. I could tell one thing that was really cool that happened right away that made me realize something is going on here. I even told my mom, I said, Mom, I said, I almost feel like something bad is going to happen because God is like holding me so close. I almost felt like he was preparing me for something, like he was preparing
Uh,
me for something terrible, but he was preparing me for something wonderful, which was like getting better and healing, eventually getting divorced and getting free of that marriage. But I had to do my own personal healing first before I could even figure out what was going on in the marriage. Because at that
uh,
point, I was such a wreck on the inside. I needed to be healed first before I could either heal or get away from the marriage. And so it wasn't that something bad was going to happen. It's just the good things were finally happening, but they were happening so rapidly that it was intense. It was really intense. But one
wow.
experience that I thought was really fun was that um, a class that I was teaching the little girls at church. I taught the 8 and 9-year-old girls at church. And I decided to, one night in the middle of the night, I realized, oh, I have some really cool stories from my family history that I could teach them and they could learn about the prophet that way. And that would be really cool because we're related. Joseph Smith and I are related. He's my first cousin, 3 times removed.
Hmm.
And so, anyways, I found these really cool stories actually on the different side of the family, on my mom's dad's side. I taught the girls these cool stories. We had this amazing lesson. And then 3 days later, during our worldwide church conference, a lady gets up, Ann Pingree, she gets up and she tells the same stories to the whole entire world that I had found in my family history book on like the Wednesday night before and that I had taught on Thursday to my kids. And I was just like, what? Like God talks to her and he talks to me and he told both of us to tell these same stories. It just like blew my mind. And I've actually had that happen in general conference 3 times
Oh,
um,
wow.
since then. Really specific things that I've been teaching other people that have been taught there. So, anyways, that was the first time I realized, wow, like he can talk to me. I can listen, I can hear, and I can share the things that are being shown to me. These are important. You need to teach these things. And it just keeps happening.
That is so
So fun.
exciting. That's so neat. So when you were saying about, you had this abusive marriage and that you needed to heal yourself, do you think that that helped you recognize the problems that were going on and how to get away from that
Yeah.
destruction in your life.
Yeah, because I kind of needed the evidence that I wasn't bad or I wasn't crazy. When you're
Hmm.
being psychologically abused, I experienced all kinds of abuse, but that was probably the most exquisitely painful because you don't really understand what is real or who you are or what is happening. And so he would use my eating disorder as a reason for being mean to me. He would say, "Well, you lied to me. You're dishonest. You're crazy. You're bad. You're hypersensitive." And he would use those excuses for why he was treating me badly. And for a while, I kind of believed him. Like I really wanted me to be the problem. When you're in an abusive situation, you're willing to accept their version of reality a lot of times because they'll tell you, you are the problem. You're crazy. Why are you so sensitive? Why are you so upset that I'm mean to you? Basically, he would be mean to me. And then I would get upset and hurt and crushed. And then he would be mad at me for being upset that he was mean. And it
Wow.
was like, why am I in trouble for being upset that you were just beyond cruel? Like, you're so cruel. The things he would do and say were so cruel and just soul crushing. And I am a sensitive person. I When you do the personality test, like I definitely am an emotional sensitive person. That's just how I came to this earth. And so it was a really bad
Hmm.
combination because he wasn't that way at all, zero. And
Oh yeah.
so he didn't understand why can't he just say these really blunt, rude, mean, twisted things and I can't just understand and just roll with the punches. It's like that doesn't work. So I had to heal. I had to heal and then I started realizing even if I still had my eating disorder, even if I was broken on the inside, I still didn't deserve the things that he was saying and doing. They still were not
Right.
true. Not true, not true. And there was physical abuse that was happening also. And so sometimes people think that's more clear cut and it's just easier. Oh, if it was just physical, I would be able to walk away because, I have a black eye or a broken arm and it would just be really obvious. But it's not. It's so hard. And you
Yeah.
want yourself to be the problem. So this is why I started saying this, but I'll just finish. You want yourself to be the problem because you can fix you. Then you're in control. And I did think that for many, many years, probably the first 11, 12, 13 years of my marriage, I thought if I can just be better and part of the eating disorder stuff, if I could just be better, if I could just fix myself, since apparently I am the problem, I can fix this marriage. And you're excited when you like take it on yourself because you're like, okay, I can really do this. And then I got better from my eating disorder. And then I got stronger and clearer and closer to Heavenly Father. And I became a better mother and a better human. And it just got worse. It just got worse. And actually, he didn't like that. He felt threatened by that.
Hmm.
And it was like he kept trying to make me smaller and smaller. The bigger and bigger I got and the brighter and shinier and happier I got, it actually made it more intense where he was just trying to like put his thumbs on me. Stop being so shiny. And he would even make fun of me when I wanted to do things in our town and I was being politically active and I had people that would listen to me about what was going on and who to vote for and all that stuff. And I led a political campaign against a tax increase in our town. It was so fun, and he hated it, and he would make fun of me and just be like, "Well, who do you think you are? You think you're like a big deal in town?" And
Wow.
it was like I kind of am trying to be a big deal. I am kind of trying to like shine bright and help people and lead, and
Hmm.
it just he didn't like it. He did not like it, and it made things worse. But I knew
Threatened his
how.
control over you.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. He just wanted me to be small,
Yeah.
and that's just the way they are. It's just kind of like textbook. And so it was interesting that my healing was so important for me to understand I'm not bad. I'm not broken. I'm good. I really am good. This is not about me. And then I started realizing, okay, this is about him. This is bad. And then I started learning about abuse. I didn't even know what psychological, verbal, or emotional abuse were. I didn't even know they were a thing
Oh
until
wow.
like until about 2004, 11 years, 12 years into our marriage. I did not know they existed. I only knew abuse as like a guy in like a white tank top, like where you call the cops because they're
Uh,
like fighting at each other and he's got like a beer belly, right? Like that's the only kind of abuse I'd ever heard of or seen in the movies. I didn't know someone who's mean to you and yells at you that actually is abuse. It's got a
hmm.
label. And then I started reading about it and I was like, "Oh my gosh, this is my life." And it started making so much sense. And part of it is really liberating because you have like a map kind of for what's been happening to you and you have something to put all this craziness into that makes sense. But then it's also very frustrating because you realize it's probably not going to change. And I spent
Yeah.
the next well, I found out that about abuse in 2004 and then I didn't file until 2018. So I spent 14 more years trying to figure it out. And of course, I'm really, really very aware of my own flaws. And I did make some mistakes in there too, reacting to the abuse and just trying to figure out who I was. And so I would beat myself up for my mistakes that I made. And
Mm.
of course, he would too. And so I thought maybe I did deserve the abuse for a while, or maybe that was just part of my punishment. And it took me till about 2015 when God was kind of like, Sarah, are you done punishing yourself yet? Are you done? Would you like to be done? Would you like to go? You know? And then in 2016 was the first time that I got a yes from God that it was time to go.
Wow.
And then it took me 2.5 years to really get strong enough and brave enough and independent enough and start my own company and start, doing some fun things where I felt like I could go. And then this just situation happened where it's just like one of the last straws. It wasn't even that big of a situation. It was just like my body was just like, we're not doing this anymore. Zero, zip, none. Like I had zero energy left for doing this kind of life. And I was able to file and leave. And then I just like bumped into my next husband and didn't realize it was going to be him, but it was pretty cool.
Which was neat that you already had a relationship together and some
Yeah.
connection that way.
So neat. I think that was probably God's greatest gift was like, you didn't even know it, but all along when you were doing these political things and going to church every Sunday, he was just right there. And I just had no idea. So he was probably just like, I just kind of picture him kind of going like when I was really sad and praying to him, he kept telling me the answer was always, everything is going to be okay. Everything is going to be okay. When I was praying about my sister passing away and my marriage, he just kept telling me everything was going to be okay. And he really should have said, everything is going to be amazing. Like, you won't even believe me if I tell you. I'm not even going to tell you. I'm just going to tell you it's going to be okay. And you're going to hang in there. But he didn't even come close to telling me how awesome it was going to be. And it's amazing. And being divorced is hard. It was hard. And my children, it was hard for them. They were
Yeah,
all, out of the house and everything, but it's not fun, but it was definitely the right thing to do. And so much joy and peace and healing. Because then I got to heal from my trauma. So that's good. That's when
that's
that next part of my journey started.
that's good. Let's go into that. This healing from trauma and these life experiences. So can you tell us a little bit about that and that journey for you?
Yeah. So, I got remarried, and my new husband is amazing, wonderful. He's very centered. He's an emotional person too, but he's very in control of his emotions, and he's just a good man, and he loves being a good man. And
Good.
so I'm very safe. And because I am very safe, that my body was like, okay, now we're safe. It's time to start dealing with all the stuff that happened to us for 26 years. And I say us because there's lots of little Sarahs inside of me that experienced trauma. And
Mhm.
there's little parts of myself that got frozen in time during that trauma. So when something happens that is so intense that your body just feels like it can't handle it, this is just too much. You leave your front part of your brain, your frontal cortex or your prefrontal cortex, it kind of goes offline and you just start thinking from like the instinct part of your brain. They call it the lizard brain or the limbic system. You go limbic. And so
Mm.
what happens is your body just stores all the information of what was going on around you, and it just stores it all for interpreting later on, and also to help keep you safe if this situation ever happens again. And then your instinct, your adrenaline, your cortisol, all those things kick in, and you're just in like stay alive, fight, flight, freeze, fawn, whichever one of those is your natural instinct, whatever your go-to method of survival is, you just go into that phase. And and then all of that is recorded in every single cell. Every cell makes a record of what entered it and when. And so your body just like makes a record of what happened, this intensity. And then it just gets locked away. This little part of you is like holding this information for you, and it wants to understand it with the whole brain intact later on. And so it stores it for recall later in your life, whenever that is ready. And it needs to process it with this, this amazing, the part of our brain that makes us so different than other animals is the frontal cortex. Even
Mhm.
apes and monkeys that are very intelligent and seem similar, right, to humans, they have a very flat forehead. They don't have that. And we have that. And
Mm.
even babies aren't really born with it. It develops as babies grow and mature. And it's still, there's neuroplasticity. It's still developing and changing, even up into our mid 20s and early 30s. And it still can change. Even as adults, we can change it, which is why trauma healing actually works. And so part of my body has been storing all these different events. And my one of my really good friends, Trish, it's her birthday today, actually. Happy
Happy
birthday,
birthday,
Trish.
Trish.
So Trish, she talked to me one day. My ex-husband had emailed me something really scary and it really freaked me out. He was basically kind of threatening me. And I called her and I was talking to her and I was a little bit freaked out. And she said, Sarah, I don't care how nice your husband is. I don't care how great he is. You have trauma stored in your body. You need to take care of it. You haven't actually dealt with your trauma yet. And I was like, dang it, you're right. And so I had gone to therapy and I have a really good therapist that helped me a lot with my eating disorder and a lot with recognizing the abuse. She was absolutely priceless with helping me recognize and get strong during those like 5 years that I was figuring that out. But I hadn't really done any work with anyone after my divorce. I just kind of was like, I'm free. Woohoo.
Right.
And then I'm in love. This is so great. And so I hadn't really taken it seriously. But what was happening at the same time, and these kind of two were coming together, but I was having these awful feelings every night, like when it would get dark and I would start to get hungry, this combination of like dark and hungry. And I learned later it is actually kind of a thing. I think I developed complex PTSD in the marriage. I already had PTSD from an event that happened right when my ex-husband and I got engaged. There was a scary event. There was a anyways, there was a fake carjacking. That was our engagement.
Oh,
That was he thought it would be really funny and it was very, very, very terrifying. And I thought it was real for about 20 to 30 minutes. I was actually hiding in the woods from a gunman thinking it was real.
oh my
And
gosh.
yeah, it's crazy. And so I developed PTSD from that, like legit classic PTSD symptoms. And that lasted for a very long time. So that was one of the symptoms that was in there. And then the complex PTSD from just 26 years of not knowing what in the heck was going on and thinking I was bad and knowing this was wrong and just being so confused and, all the different types of abuse. So
So
all that
wait,
was bubbling up.
so that was how he was proposing to you?
Yeah, that's how he proposed to me. It was
Wow.
really just a dumb idea and it went crazy really fast right off the bat. As soon as the guy drove away, we were way up in Vivian Canyon by Provo Canyon.
Hmm.
We were way up in the woods away from houses on this windy road and there was a guy that was in the middle of the road blocking our car and he said that his car had broken down. He wanted a ride down to the houses, this is before cell phones. So we picked him up and he got in the car and he pulled out a gun and put it to my head and said, you have to do what I say or I'm going to kill you and your boyfriend.
Oh
And
my
so,
gosh.
yeah, so we drove a little bit and then he had us get out of the car and then he drove off with the car. And as soon as he drove around the corner, I went and ran up into the woods. And so I thought, and then of course, worst case scenarios keep happening. He comes back around because I wasn't going to be standing on the side of the road if he changed his mind about the car and wanted to
Hmm.
shoot me.
Yeah.
And so I ran up the side of the mountain and my ex-husband followed me. And then when he came back around, which is what I was hoping wouldn't happen, I dove into the bushes and we hid in the bushes. And I was just, I could hear his car going back and forth looking for us. And I was just like begging God, please do not let me die. I'm only 19 years old. I'd never been married. I'd never had kids. I want to have a family. I don't want to die. And I was just begging with him. I was just grieving about my family. I was so sad for them. I was watching them find out, I was visualizing all this in my head. It's like flashing, they're getting a phone call from the police. And then I'm picturing the article in the paper about these two BYU co-eds murdered in the canyon. And I'm just like, I'm going to die. And eventually we would get up and run and then hide again, get up and run and hide again when he wasn't near where we were.
Uh-huh.
And then he got out of the car and he started searching for us on foot,
Oh my
looking
goodness.
for us on foot. And I could see him. Like I could see him hunting. He's hunting me. Why does he want me? He already has the car. He obviously wants to kill me. And I really was terrified. And then I eventually he did find us because my ex-husband didn't hide one of the times when he came around the corner with the gun when he was on foot. And he caught us and he made us come down the side of the mountain at gunpoint. I told I told my ex, I said, I think he's drunk. See if you can get the gun from him. And then I said, hey, tell him he can have anything he wants. Cause we're like almost down to the street now. And I'm like, he's going to line us up and kill us.
Mm-hmm.
So please, like trying to tell him, giving some hints, maybe, wrestle the gun from him, tell him he can have anything he wants. And then the guy says to me, he points the gun at me and he says, you know what I want? I want you to marry him. And all of a sudden I'm like, how does he know that we are planning on getting married? My brain is just like totally malfunctioning. And then I
Wow.
look at my ex and he has the ring out and he says, will you marry me? And
Oh
so
my gosh. That is crazy.
it's crazy. And it went off the rails a bit. It was not supposed to last that long. I wasn't supposed to run and hide, but you don't know what someone's going to do. I'm flight when it comes to fight or flight. I am flight for sure. And so he didn't know that, that was going to happen, but he could have stopped it at any point. And it was,
Right.
20, 30 minutes of running and hiding and praying and being terrorized. I was being terrorized by a gunman. And he never stopped it. He never stopped and comforted
Wow.
me and said, this is, this went bad. It was supposed to just, supposed to drive away with the car and then come back and say, what are your last words? He's supposed to say, I love you. Will you marry me? Supposedly, that's his excuse. It wasn't supposed to get all awry, but it was a horrible, horrible idea in the first place. And who
Yeah.
does that?
Right.
So actually, this leads to my trauma healing.
Ugh.
So this was the first trauma that I ever decided to get healed. So I learned about this place called trauma integration. And a
Okay.
friend of mine was learning how to do this type of healing. They'll train you and teach you how to just to walk people through traumatic events and help their body release all the physical sensations that it's been remembering and storing, and how to help you also get rid of and teach that little girl the truth about the situation and what happened. Because what happens in trauma is you learn things. You learn
Mm-hmm.
things in the situation. You have all sorts of feelings, of course, shock and, dismay and terror and all that. But then you make all these decisions, especially like young children who are sexually abused. When they're being abused, they think that I did something bad. They think they're bad. They think they asked for it. And they think they're gross. They think they're dirty. And they learn all these things that they think are true, and it affects the rest of their life. It's just like an overlay. It's just like this color that is seeing through a glass darkly. They think these bad, horrible things about themselves are true, and they learned it like physically in their body and soul and mind during this traumatic event. And anyone learns something about themselves that's not true. It's just a lie during
Mm-hmm.
trauma. And so there was a lot of things for me. This one more was physical, but there was a lot of things I needed to learn. So when I learned about this type of trauma healing, where you actually ask the body what it has been experiencing, I was ready to get rid of my big first major trauma. When I think of trauma, I think of that event, right? Because I know that I had PTSD from it. I was so hyper vigilant afterwards. I was so terrified of the dark, of the woods, of being alone,
Wow.
of being near anyone that looked sketchy at all. Like walking down downtown Seattle a few months later, and homeless people or just anyone that looked at all dangerous, like that might have a gun. Like I was terrified. I couldn't do it because that younger version of myself, she's holding all this information and she is like on the lookout constantly for anything like that. And she's going to keep me away from those situations. She's just going to make me relive all that terror if I get close to anything that looks like that, like the woods or the canyon, or
Mm-hmm.
being alone or being in the dark. So anyways, my body was just ready. It was just like, can we please just get rid of this one first? So I was learning how to be a practitioner, and also I was doing my own work at um my first practice one, actually my first trauma healing situation. Trauma relief is what we call it. So when I went through the story, you tell the story to your practitioner, just like I told you that story.
Mm-hmm.
I would probably go into maybe a few more details, but then she tells you the story back. You just kind of go back in it with your practitioner, with your coach, and they tell you the story like one line at a time and you say it back to them. So you're kind of going through the story together, and you're not alone this time, which is so awesome. And
Wow.
then you ask the body what it experienced, and you say to the body, um, she'll say, okay, after we've talked for like 5 minutes, we're like, maybe we're at the point in the car where he pulls out the gun. She's like, okay, what are you feeling in your body right now? And I'll just, you're laying on this I was just like laying back on this little easy chair that she has in her office. And my eyes are closed. I did some deep breathing before we started. I'm kind of there. I'm on in the car on the side of the mountain. And she's asking me, so I'm asking my body and I'm like, oh, I feel tightness in my chest. My heart is racing. And so you actually just repeat, there's tightness in my chest. My chest feels tight. My chest feels tight. There's tightness in my chest. My heart is racing. My heart is racing. And you say it out loud. And
Mm-hmm.
then your body knows, okay, I can feel you. I'm experiencing this memory with you in 2000, this happened in 2022, my healing exactly 30 years later. And so my 49-year-old self was able to tell this little 19-year-old girl, like I feel it. And I'm able to tell my body, I feel it. And then I tell my body, I don't need this feeling anymore. And so it's okay for you to let it go now. And I'll say, this feeling is just a memory of the experience that I had that day. This feeling is just a memory of what my body went through that day. And then I always love to say, thank you, body. Good job, body. Because my body got me through that.
Yeah.
My body is amazing. Like that was majorly intense. That was intense. And so you go through the story, 5 minutes at a time, and then you release things from the body. And then she'll say, what was Sarah thinking right there? What do you think Sarah was thinking right there? And so we go through the thoughts and we'll kind of talk to that younger version and we'll tell her what was true, actually true about it. Like, especially with a child, you'll say, no, actually, you didn't do anything wrong. This person has got some major problems and this is wrong. And what's so confusing for children is they don't understand why everyone else is so nice to this person. Like this
Right.
person is so mean to them and does this gross, creepy thing with them, but no one else knows about it. And everyone else is just like, oh, they're the greatest person in the whole world. For me, that was confusing even in my marriage because my ex-husband was a doctor and he was in church leadership positions and everyone just thought he was so great. But at home, he was so mean to me. And so it was really hard for people to understand, or for me, even me to understand when I see him sitting up there looking so handsome in his suit, just like try to remember, okay, I'd forgive him and I'd move on and I'd be ready. Okay, okay, reset. Everything's going to be fine. We're just going to, keep moving forward.
Yeah.
And
Trying to
then,
do that Christian thing, right? To
yeah,
be
exactly. I
forgiving and
forgave him 50 million times, like
yeah.
70 times seven. I did that. I did the 70 times seven.
Yeah.
And but everyone else, they don't really see it, and even in yourself, you'll forget, you go into denial, you want to push it down, you don't want it to be real. And so it gets really confusing and you do learn all sorts of things that are not true about yourself. So you get to go back and you get to teach this 19-year-old self what is really true. So the next part of the story is the most amazing part of this whole thing for my journey. This is where I realized this stuff is real. This is serious. So the next part of the story, we actually rescue you. You rescue the girl all along, and it's something as intense and long lasting as this trauma was. So we
Mm-hmm.
actually rescue her from the event, from the car, and I take her somewhere really safe in my imagination. We do visualization,
Okay.
which is super powerful. So we take her somewhere else, and sometimes I take her to the Brave Girl room. It's like this cabin up in the woods, and it's beautiful. And maybe that would not be the best place because it was in the woods, but um,
Right.
it's this beautiful place. It's like got wood floors and big windows with billowy white curtains and a big fluffy white couch. And it's the safest place in the world. And I bring her there and there's angels there. And I just wrap her in a blanket and I care for her. And that's where we'll do some of our, conversations about what really happened and who she really is and what her value is and how much I love her. And now she's free. Like she's literally out of that car and she's free and she never has to go back ever, ever, ever. And I just let them know it is over and I'm taking charge. Like I'm 49 and we're free and I'm taking over now. Like you never have to do that again. And it's so important because our body will literally relive and relive and relive and relive these moments below the surface. And your subconscious is happening all the time. And literally, we know we're reliving things and it's never going to go away until we address it and talk to them and let them know we're listening finally. And we want to help them and be free, be free, set them free. So I love setting my little girls free. So she's safe. But now we go back and we get the girl out of the bushes. Right. And
Mm.
so we go and we talk to her and like, what are you feeling? So she's asking me, what are you feeling right now? And I'm like, my left hand is tingling like crazy. It's just tingling, tingling. We keep talking through that one and it's not going away. Everything always goes away, which is just this most amazing miracle. Your body shows you what it felt and then it just melts away and it's
Yeah,
gone. And
that's
it's so
amazing.
cool. It's so amazing. I love it.
Yeah.
And it's so fun. I mean, I've done this with a lot of my own clients and it's so cool. And sometimes I'm like, okay, I hope it works this time. Always works. Your body's just actually grateful to get rid of it. It just
Yeah.
wants someone to know this what happened to me. It just wants someone to know. Your heart wants you. The heart is amazing. All the different shapes and things that your heart does, it's incredible. So she's like, what are you feeling right now? And I was feeling so my left hand was tingling, but my whole body, I was feeling really light and floaty. And I felt really light just laying in the chair. I felt like I was floating. And I knew from my training that I was doing with her that sometimes when someone dissociates during a situation, part of their consciousness will actually leave their body, and they're just kind of watching their body get abused or be damaged or whatever is happening. And it's such a gift. The body actually just like shoves the consciousness out, and it's like, we're going to take it from here because we can handle this, and the body can't go anywhere anyways. But if part of us can leave, like, they might as well leave. So it's this amazing protection that your body just does for you. I didn't consciously leave my body, but my consciousness definitely left my body, because then my mentor, Michelle Jones, she's amazing. She said, um, "Are you watching this from above, or are you in your body in the bushes?" And then I was like, "Oh, I'm watching it from above."
Hmm.
So then I realized I was dissociating during this time. So then she asks me, "Okay, you need to go get inside of your body so your body can share with you what it experienced when you were missing."
Wow.
And I'm like, "Oh crap. I know it's not going to be pretty down in there, you know. She's
Yeah.
not happy. If I'm up here, she's not happy down there." And so she just said, "I just want you to visualize yourself just like floating down and just climbing inside your body. And I want you to feel the mountain behind your back, feel the bushes next to you and feel the mountain behind your back." As soon as she said the words, "Feel the mountain behind your back," I was in my body. And then
Hmm.
everything changed. Everything changed. Before that, I was talking about the grief, and I was crying about, I was so sad for my parents. I was grieving my own life that I wasn't going to be able to live because I thought I was
Yeah.
going to die. Well, then all of the sudden, I was 19 years old. I was in the bushes, and I was terrified. And then I just couldn't talk out loud. I was completely frozen. Like, I was frozen. She's like, "What do you feel in your body right now?" And I'm like, "I can't move.
Yeah,
I
because you're
can't move."
reliving it. You're trying to hide.
I was trying to hide, and
Yeah.
I was like, I couldn't talk out. I could not talk loud. I just kept saying, "He's down there and he's looking for me and I can't move and I'm frozen." And she was like, and I was like, even my chest was feeling tight, and she's like, "Can you breathe right now?" And I was like, "Yes." She's like, "You're in my room. You're in my office. It's 2022 and you can breathe." And I'm like, "Yeah, I can breathe." But my body was still totally stiff. And so we worked on that, and we relieved the stiffness, and we reminded myself that this is not happening anymore. Your body needs to know over and over again, this is no longer happening. That's the other phrase I was not thinking of earlier. This is no longer happening. So I don't need these feelings anymore. Like, I'm taking them from here. This is
Wow.
no longer happening. So I got to tell my body, this is no longer happening. You can let go of all these feelings because I'm here now. My consciousness is actually here now. And I'm 49 years old, and I'm going to take it from here. And so she was like, "Oh, thank you." And then she's like, "Okay, so now what are you feeling?" And then I all of a sudden felt heavy. And it was the weirdest thing. I went from being light to being heavy. And she's like, "What do you mean heavy?" And so I'm like, and I'm doing this thing called introspection, which I didn't know that word back then, but it's the coolest thing. It's just basically when you're like meditating, your eyes are closed and you're actually feeling the nerves inside your body. You're feeling what's happening inside of you. And it is probably the most important mental health skill, physical health skill, mental health, emotional health skill you can learn, is to go inside your body and just feel around and ask what's happening in there, who is struggling, whether it's your physical body, your heart, your lungs, your muscles, or these little Sarahs that have been trapped holding on to this trauma. And so I'm like doing this introspection thing, and I can feel this pressure right here, this just gentle, soft pressure right here on my hips and like right on my stomach. And I was like, "I think someone's holding on to me. I think someone's holding me down. I think these are hands." And then I just realized there's angels there, and I could just kind of see them in my mind's eye. There was angels surrounding my body, and their hands were holding me during this
Wow.
most terrifying moment of my entire life. It was pure terror. Like, I was in sheer terror. If I moved, I was dead. If I breathed, I was dead. If I made a sound or wiggled the bush on accident, I was dead. So my life depended on me being absolutely still and quiet and not breathing. And these beautiful, lovely angels held my body. So while my consciousness was gone, my body wasn't alone. There was a consciousness there. There was lots of them, and they were holding me. They were surrounding me. And then I also realized this tingling that I wasn't able to get rid of
Hmm.
was an angel holding my hand. And
Wow.
I'm like, "Oh my gosh, I know now what it feels like to have angels hold my hand." And
That's incredible.
I felt them in my another traumatic experience in my closet at home a few like 10 years, 11 years into the marriage, I felt two, like one holding each hand. I felt like one on each side of me, holding my hands and keeping me safe. And both times, and I also felt them holding my body at that time too, that this was like a life or death situation with my ex-husband. And so the first time, the things that the angels were telling me, I could just hear these ideas, these thoughts. They just were saying, and they were whispering, they were just saying, just be still, just don't move. And they were just like, shh, just stay here, just be still. And it was so calming. So like part of me is feeling pure terror, and like, but yet this other part of me is feeling these, lovely hands holding me to the mountain so I don't freak out, and just telling me, just stay here, just be quiet, just don't move. And it was really cool. It was kind of like they were my instinct. They were kind of just telling me, this is what we need to do to be safe. The other thing I love about my angels, and what I learned in this moment, was that they they were with me. They knew it was fake. They knew I was going to be okay, but they
Right.
weren't like, "Oh, it's fine. This is a fake gun. No big deal." No. They were with me in that situation, and that's how they are with us, is like if we are in danger, they're going to meet us where we're at, and they're not going to just blow it off like it's no big deal. Just to my body, it was a really big deal.
Yeah.
And so the last thing I just want to talk about is that this is when I learned to fall in love with my body and how powerful it was, because my body held on to this memory for 30 years. 30 years, every single cell was able to show me. And just when I asked it to wake up, when I finally just said, what's going on inside here? And I reconnected with this 19-year-old self and asked her what she felt, my whole entire body was able to like replay the event for me, show me literally, physically, emotionally what I felt. And that record was stored in every single cell. And that record was stored of like the hands touching me. I mean, I don't even know exactly. Well, I kind of know how it happened, but I don't know exactly how it works. But it is amazing. And I do know that I went from being 49-year-old Sarah to being 19-year-old Sarah, and she was able to just show me what happened. And
Yeah.
then I was able to finally release her and get her free out of those bushes. Because I told this story a lot of times. The way that I dealt with it when I was 19 was that I kind of made it into like a story or a joke, or like, did you hear how I got engaged? And I would tell the story. Every single time I told that story, my hands would shake, my heart would race, and I
Yeah.
would totally re-traumatize myself. And I would re-traumatize her. I would put her back in the bushes. She would have to go and like, do the whole story over again. And I just felt so bad that I had made this into something like kind of light, like not that big of a deal, because that was how I was coping with it, right? That's
Right.
how I was coping with it, and it was one of my coping mechanisms. Well, defense mechanisms and coping mechanisms can also be really not helpful after a while if we're not getting healing from the thing that they were helping us with at first, like denial. It's really great at first. We can't process everything that happened to us at first. We shouldn't even try. So we go into denial for a while. And eventually, we realize what happened and the truth about our new reality. Like if we lose somebody. But so this poor little self of mine, this poor little 19-year-old, she was like stuck in those bushes, and I was re-traumatizing her, retelling her story, not realizing what she really went through because I wasn't there. So
Uh-huh.
once I went into my body and really experienced it with her, it was like not funny anymore. It was a big deal. And I really got to just honor her for what she went through, because that sucked. No one
Yeah.
should ever go through that. And I should not have made light of what she went through all those years. And I apologized to her. And now she helps me teach. Now when I tell the story, I honor her and what she went through, and that she was stuck there for so long. And her and I together, we help teach other people that you have these little frozen parts of yourself that are holding on to the trauma. They have a message for you. And the message just might be, this really sucked. And someone needs to just know that, like with a friend, like sometimes we just want to tell somebody something that we went through. We want someone to validate our experience. And so
Yeah.
part of it is even just someone needs to validate this was really traumatic. But also, I think part of her message was that I was scared of the wrong things. Like my hypervigilance was about people that looked like the gunman or being in the woods and all that stuff. But she wanted to tell me, no, this guy next to you, he is dangerous. He did this to us and he thinks it's funny.
Yeah.
And you think you're the problem in the relationship. You're confused all the time. You don't know whether, you were abused or maybe you were crazy. And sometimes you believe the stuff that he tells you, But this person that's telling you that you're bad and you're crazy, he thought this was a good idea. He thought this was funny. He laid next to me while I was in that terror and just let me suffer. And she wanted me to know that he's the bad guy and not me. And she wanted me to know what was real and just kind of get my head on straight, because that's the probably the best thing that I learned from the rest of my trauma recovery that I did. I did 34 hours of healing, these kinds of sessions, over the
Wow.
next, 6 months, 8 months. And I still will go back to her if something bubbles up and I just feel some anxiety, or I don't know, some kind of tension or just sickness. I can tell when there's a Sarah that's like, you haven't talked to me yet. And this was a really bad thing that happened to me. And sometimes I will go back to, if I can, like, sometimes I can tell that I'm triggered. If my new husband does something that it all reminds me of being trapped or stuck, or me being mean or rude or something, I'll get triggered and I will be like a 29-year-old version of myself or a 32-year-old version of myself where I'll feel trapped. And it's
Hmm.
kind of the same thing. It happens to us on accident all the time. We get triggered with emotional stuff from our past and trauma, or even little things. Maybe you were embarrassed, in junior high, you were embarrassed, or your girlfriends all ditched you, and you're going to feel these same feelings come back up when the situation is similar, and you'll be kind of, I like to call it like flickered. You're like flickered into that younger girl, or this overlay is happening where this person, this traumatized version of yourself, steps in front of your soul and is like kind of in charge for a little bit. And I've had some really bad ones with my new marriage, and I know it's not him. This is what's so cool about it. I know it's not him. I know he's good. I know the things he said. It might have, like, been maybe kind of stupid thing to say, but I know he's not malicious or trying to hurt me. But I
Hmm.
feel trapped. I feel like, holy crap, this is not okay. And there's a protective part of me that's going to come out, and she is going to just like, there's no way in hell I'm staying here, and I can't do this. And I'm just like watching my body overreact and just freak out about something. And it's really cool. I've been learning and practicing. I can tell when I've been triggered or when I've flickered into this younger version of myself. And I'll just let myself realize, okay, something is happening. You're flooded with all these emotions that aren't really related to, they don't match. The intensity doesn't match the
Uh-huh.
situation. And so many people, that happens to them all the time. And I'm sure that's what was happening with my ex-husband. I know I was dealing with this protective, traumatized version of him most of the time. This wasn't the real him. The real him was wonderful and amazing, and I loved him very much. I still love the real soul that I was married to. I really do care about him and love him. But this protective, traumatized version that I mostly dealt with, I had to divorce because he was
Yeah.
going to destroy me. But the soul, the real him, I mean, I feel bad. He's kind of stuck in there behind all these walls, right? I like him. I married him too. But I had to divorce the other one because he was in charge.
Yeah.
And so it's really, really healthy when we can realize, you know, um, like in these trauma healing sessions, we're doing it on purpose. We're purposely going back there and reliving it so we can fix it and heal it, relieve the body of those burdens, and set the protectors free, set the traumatized girl free, let them just be a part of us, a healthy part of us. We don't want them to go away. We just want them to set down the things they were carrying, whether it's their job of protecting that injured part or whether it is the injuries themselves. So we get to do that. But then um, we get to go and they get to integrate back into us and just be part of me, that joyful 19-year-old who's just so excited about life. She's a part of me and she's done with that burden, and she gets to help me teach, and she gets to tell our story with me. And it's so cool when you get to do that. And that's why they call it trauma integration. You set down those burdens, you get rid of those yucky, awful feelings, and then you integrate that girl into you. So instead of having like this part of me that's like a scar,
Hmm.
it's now soft and it's like blending into the rest of my body and soul. And I love that. So it's body and soul. Now there's more of me available to live my life. I have less energy directed towards things in the past that were, that suffering and pain, resentment. I'm not even angry anymore. I'm not angry about any of it. I'm just so happy with where I'm at. And I just adore my body and my soul. I know who I am. And that's part of what's been so fun about these last few months is I've just come to a really good place of realizing all of us have to go through something to get to new levels. And we get to take with us everything that we learn. And I've been through a lot of really crappy things. I lost my brother to suicide 2 years ago.
Hmm.
Number 8 in our family, number 8 and 9 are both gone, both from suicide 10 years apart. You can't imagine. I mean, I'm sure you can, but the devastation of receiving that phone call, but all of the suffering that I've gone through. all of the things that I've healed from, I get to now take all of that. And it's a lot. I have a lot to work with.
Yeah.
And I get to use that to help other people because I can relate. I can relate to the abuse. I can relate to the grief. I can relate to eating disorders. I can relate to divorce. I can relate to all this stuff about getting married and trying to figure out a new marriage when you've got all this old stuff. And so it's all a gift if you want it to be and if you do the healing, right? It's
Right.
not a gift if you're just stuck in it and you're just sad and you're still traumatized. But when you kind of turn that corner, then you get to just use it to create whatever kind of life that you want. And that's what I've been doing. It's been amazing.
That is incredible. I mean, yeah. And for you to be able to receive that healing, and our bodies and our spirits are one, like they work
They
they work
are.
together. And so
Yeah.
yeah.
It's so really important to, I think this is one of my favorite things is like take them apart and let people like examine what is my soul? What is it made out of? Where did it come from? What is it doing for me? Who's in charge, right? And where's it going to go? All these fun things. I love learning about the soul. And that's my new class, Life is Now, that I've created from all this stuff that I've been learning and that I am still learning. It's all about taking it apart and really examining the soul, really examining the body. We talk about the cells in each cell and then your systems and your organs, and then this little society of younger selves inside of you. And so it's really fun to take them apart and then you put them back together and they appreciate each other so much. They love each other. And then you realize your body is the coolest support system on the planet. I mean, human bodies are the most complicated, amazing, miraculous creations on this whole earth. And the earth has got a lot of cool things in it. I mean, there's whales
Yeah.
and butterflies and trees and mountains and aurora borealis. Like there's really cool things on this planet, but humans are fantastic. And I get to live in one. I get to be one. I get to drive one of these amazing bodies around. And it's the most amazing support system. It's doing trillions of things. I have over 50 to 100 trillion cells in me, and they are constantly rejuvenating, replenishing, digesting, immunizing, doing all these things inside each cell. And then those cells are working together in systems and organs to make this. And I get to live in that. And I don't even know how it works. Literally, we're trying to figure out how our own bodies work, but
Right.
I get to live in one. Even though I don't know how it works, I get to live in one. But now I love taking care of it, just giving it the water, the sunshine, the rest, the reading, the studying, the outside, communing with God, communing with nature. I get to give it all the things it wants. And then it loves giving my soul the things my soul wants, right? Like the scripture study and prayer and meditation. And once you start realizing that connection and how powerful it is, there's literally nothing you can't do because your body it's just not holding you back, but it's actually, bringing you forward and it's enabling you to do whatever your little heart desires. And it's just really fun to have like this teammate that is you, right? It is you.
Yeah.
And without it, you're dead. Without your body, you're dead. You're not here anymore on this planet in this form. And you're going to interact in totally different ways. But it's really fun to, take it apart, examine both parts of us, and then just put us back together. So that's the last two lessons of my class are all about putting it back together. And I'm really excited to finish out. We're on lesson 4 right now of my Life is Now class.
That's awesome. Yeah, like what you were saying before about how our trials will help us to become stronger, or take us to that newer height.
Mm-hmm.
It's just that's what to me Live Greater is
Exactly.
about, doing a little each day to help you do better. And sometimes there's trials in our lives that we just need to realize what's going on and get out of it. And I think it's the desire that really helps us to strive to get out of it and have that desire to change or get out of the situation or to learn.
Yes.
And sometimes a friend like yours to help you realize what was going
Yes.
on to take you out of
Absolutely.
it. Because
Yeah. To kind of just say, like, are you done with this yet?
yeah,
Like, have you ever asked to be healed? And then maybe give me a little pointer, like what was the best thing she ever did for herself is what she told me. And that was so huge. And I think, my husband and I, because he went through a lot of things, really hard things when he was younger, and his marriage was really difficult. And, I think the key for us of the things that the two ingredients that helped us the most is that we always wanted to be happy. Even though I was struggling, I still figured out ways to be happy. I just wanted to be happy. I didn't want a bad life. And so
yeah,
I kind of refused to have a bad life. Even when my sister passed away, I really was trying so hard to figure out, okay, how do I get through this? I was actually scared that I might end up dead because my marriage was really bad and it was really terrible at that point, like one of the rock bottomest times. And then I know that suicides come in clusters. I know that she'd been, she had bulimia. I had had bulimia. So I was kind of really afraid. So I took my mental health really serious after that. And I was much more proactive. And I realized that I really do just want to be happy. So I'm going to figure out a way to be happy. And one of the ways that you figure out how to be happy is learning things. We're learning and
Yeah.
applying. So that's why I've read so many books. It's like the more I learn, I realize the happier I am because then I apply these things to my life. I understand how the world works, how my body works, how my spirit works, how my brain works. And the more I understand, the happier I am, especially because I apply it because I
Right.
want to feel good. I want to be happy. And so now my favorite thing is taking all that and then like sharing it in my class or my retreats, right? Because if I don't share it, I feel like I'm going to explode. It's like, okay, this is super awesome. And I'm excited that I feel good and I've woken up and my spirit's in charge and I'm getting my body really healthy. But if I don't share it with other people, I'm literally not living my purpose. And then that's going to take me backwards again because I have to do this. I have to teach. I've always been a teacher. I love helping people heal. It's just my favorite jam. And so it's just kind of fun once you realize, once you get your own healing or whatever your journey is, in some way you need to share it with other people. For me,
Yeah.
it's classes and retreats. And I don't know, I also make bracelets and do cute things like that for people. So putting a message on a little leather bracelet for someone is another fun way I share. But you kind of have to just get it out. This is what you're doing too. You're doing the same thing. It's like you have to teach the thing that helped you be the most happy. And that's just how the world spins around. That's how, the good things keep getting out there.
Yeah.
And maybe some people it's art or singing or just being like the best friend or the best mom, whatever it is. It's so fun to be able to share what brings us joy in the way that makes us joyful. I have a website called yourbeautifulsoul.net. And so anyone can go there and you can go click on the Life is Now page. That's my new class that I've been teaching where we really get down into the spirituality and the science behind our body and soul. And then we take it all apart and we look at how both parts work and then we put it together and work on getting them to blend and, just go forward with less trauma, less blockages. And it's so fun. And also, then my retreats, same thing. They're called Soul Restoration Retreats. You can just click on the tab and learn about my retreats. And I have, okay, my next Life is Now class is coming up August 8th or 9th. So I'm doing Tuesday nights in person in Arizona and Wednesday nights online. So it's 6 weeks from August 8th or the 9th to September 12th or the 13th, whether you're online or in person. And the class is only $175. If they want to bring a friend, then they can use the code friendship and save $50 if they, book together.
Uh-huh.
And then also we're going to use the coupon code greater to get 25 extra dollars off. So your people, just the code greater. And then Soul Restoration Retreat is coming up in the fall. I'm going to do it October 25th through the 28th. And that is obviously more expensive. It's like 3.5 full days here. And I feed you and I give you lots of presents and treats and you do amazing art and you learn all the truths and you get them sink down in your soul with all the art. And we sing and we sit around my lovely backyard. You get to really experience the fish and the patios and the beautiful furniture. And it's so much fun. So the retreat is going to be, there's a $50 coupon code, just greater for the same thing. And then if you bring
Awesome.
a friend, you also save $50 on the retreat with the same code friendship. So both of them are friendship and both of them are greater for
Okay.
saving money at yourbeautifulsoul.net. And so you go there and you can find out. And also the other thing that I do that you can find more information about at the same website is the trauma integration coaching. So I
Okay.
can actually, the sessions are about an hour, hour and a half long, and they're $75 a session. And I will go with you into an event and I go with you and I know how to do this. I'm trained. I've done it lots of times. I've done my own work tons and tons of times. And it's very safe. Your body will not let you bring up something and share it with me if it's not ready. There's a
Okay.
part of you that will protect it and keep it down if you're not ready. So it's fine. If your body is ready to tell me the story and talk about it, then we are going to get that girl or that boy out of there. I work with men too. In my Life is Now class, there's men in my class too. The retreats are just women, but everything else. But like if you're tired of this, whatever this yucky feeling is, or maybe it's actual physical pain in your body or this mental stuff, you're like so tired of running the same thing over and over and over again inside your head and you want to be free, even if you don't know what the event is and you just know there's something in there, your body will tell me and you when it's time. And so we can go in there and we get the physical sensations out. We teach you what was really true about you and about the situation. And then we rescue you and we heal you and we get you out of there. And reliving, reshaping your past actually has an effect in your present and in your future.
Yeah.
And it is real and it is super powerful. So I do that too. It's just called basically trauma integration coaching or trauma relief coaching. So you can just sign up for a session with me on my website. And so that's my favorite. I mean, they're all my favorite, but the one-on-one stuff where you get to free someone's little ones from being trapped and frozen inside of them is it's so wonderful. It's a miracle. It's a miracle every time.
This has been so incredible. Thank you so much, Sarah. And I'm so excited for people to, use these coupons and be able to attend your events, your classes, and your retreats. So exciting. I
Thank
love
you
all
so
this.
much. I
Thank you.
love
Thank
visiting
you.
with you today. It's been a blast to be reconnected with you.